very welcome back to the Play Strong Girl podcast with your host, Maeve Liston. I am so delighted to have my lovely guest, Abbie Fleming, with me today. She is a Welsh international rugby player and also plays with Harlequins as well. So myself and Abbie have had a friendship lasting over 10 years, which is amazing to say now and shows what kind of friends you can make in rugby for life, I think. We've kind of had parallel journeys in a way that we both started taking rugby very seriously at university, and she went on to play for Wales and working alongside that with your physiotherapy, and then progressed into a full professional player. So we're going to dive into the highs and, you know, maybe some of the struggles along the way with that as well. But yeah, we've already spent 4 days together, so we've chatted a lot. But we're going to delve into some of the very interesting topics I think that listeners out there would definitely benefit from your knowledge. So welcome, Abbie.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the beginning with your rugby journey. So, you know, I've met your mum and dad, they are amazing, but you said they never played rugby or were into rugby. So how did it find you?
Yeah, my dad grew up loving football and loving circuit training. My mum grew up liking similar things in terms of classes and things like that, but more so volleyball. So they both still continue to do that as I was growing up, but didn't really know much about rugby. And then when I was younger, I went to a tag rugby tournament when I was in primary school. And one of the coaches was saying to me that, oh, you should try rugby. And then I tried it at probably 12, 13, and then I'm still here playing it. So, yeah, my mum and dad didn't really play rugby, know much about it, but they've definitely learnt more about it since I've been playing, and they follow me all over the world. So, yeah, it's amazing. And, just something I didn't envisage getting myself in.
Yeah, I'd say. But even, Exeter is a huge rugby town, you know, you had the Chiefs and everything there, and then you played Southwest as well under 15s, didn't you? But there was a lovely story you said about the nights that your mum went out to play her volleyball.
So when we were growing up, obviously my brother's a bit younger than me, but quite often my mum and dad would take in turns as to who looked after us in the evenings. But I remember there was evenings where my mum would go out and play volleyball and train. And I had really, similar length hair to now, it's grown. But I had really long hair, and again, overnight, it would just get all messy and tangly for the morning for school. So mum used to plait my hair before I'd go to bed, but quite often if she was out, my dad would do it, but my mum taught my dad how to plait.
Oh, that's so nice.
I remember, he would just sit and plait my hair, and then I'd go to bed. And sometimes now I think, I'll just sit in front of him and see if he can plait my hair, which he definitely could, and he'd love that. But it's just something that used to kind of help their routine and obviously help me as well. So
definitely allowed her to go out and do what she needed to do, knowing rightly that you're being looked after and got your hair all done and sorted.
Yeah, definitely.
And even another great story about your dad. I've met him a couple of times now, and he's just so lovely, and he's all have the same energy, just that positive, just everything is great. And he unfortunately had a little bit of an injury, I think, showing maybe where your competitiveness comes from.
Yeah, I remember
that.
He
gosh, do you know how happy you'll be sharing this?
He'd love this story, to be honest.
He'd
love me sharing it. But he's obviously very competitive. I know, when I was younger, probably from the age of 16 to 18, we used to go circuit training, and we were in this sports hall, and we'd be racing each other up and down the sports hall. And every time we'd finish, I'd just make a sly remark to him, be, who won today then, Dad? Or did I win? I think I won. And again, it was oh, but you didn't hit the line or whatever, and some rubbish back. And it was just very competitive, and that's very much how we were together growing up. And again, the circuit training allowed us to kind of spend time together, exercising and being healthy, but also push ourselves as well. But sorry, the story you're mentioning is around my dad and his meniscus injury. So he unfortunately tore his meniscus, and we have decided that we think it's a 2-part injury.
Okay.
So the first part, we challenged my dad whether he could sit and suck his own tongue. which is obviously a really weird thing to talk about. So he tried it. He tried it, and he nearly got there. Fair play to him, he nearly got there, but he got there and something clicked, and he was like, "Ooh, that didn't feel so good." Carried on for a little while, maybe a week, 2 weeks passed, and he went to like lay a blanket on the front room floor, and he just ended up on the floor, couldn't get up, completely gone. Obviously, unfortunately, or fortunately, the first thing me and my family did was laugh at him.
Of course.
Because he was rolling around the floor.
Oh.
Yeah. And then when we figured out he couldn't get up, okay, right, we've got a bit of a problem here. Maybe we should just help you up. And then obviously he tore his meniscus.
Oh,
so
gosh.
he couldn't actually straighten his knee. And we have a local shop that's like a 10-minute walk away. And he decided one day to go out and on his crutches and walk to the shop and back. And it took him 2 hours.
Oh, but that's like absolute, like,
yeah,
headstrong, I'm still going to do this anyway,
Yeah,
which is another
yeah.
thing that I think that he's definitely passed on to
very
you
stubborn.
as well.
Yeah, very stubborn. So yeah, he obviously had surgery on that, and afterwards he's like, "Oh, I can straighten my knee,
Oh,
I can
gosh.
walk," and all these things. And obviously that's what we see.
You haven't asked him to suck his toe yet?
No.
Again?
I don't think he'd say yes.
I don't think
I
he'd say
don't
yes
think he'd
either.
even try.
Gosh. And like, me and Abbie met at university. She was the year ahead of me studying physiotherapy. And uni rugby was a great time. I mean, it was my kind of first experience of having group S&C sessions and, you know, building that little bit of consistency in the gym. And then our Wednesday nights, social nights, like, it was a completely new environment for me. And moving country, and you're the same, you moved country as well. But how did that started your strength and conditioning journey kind of as well? I know you've said that to me before with like our coach that we had, like Rich at the time, who was making us programming. And then you were kind of with Cardiff Blues as well and around that time. So how did that, you know, kickstart your strength and conditioning journey, I guess?
Yeah, I'd say that was probably when I was around 18, 19. So I started playing uni rugby at 18 when I went to uni, and then I probably didn't get involved in the regional setup at the time with Cardiff Blues until I was maybe 19, 20. But yeah, the strength and conditioning journey, it starts, obviously you're getting involved in a gym, and I'd like to think now like the training age is earlier for young women, but obviously for us it was very much 18. And then you start, and now obviously we've got 10 years of a training age, whereas so at the time I was going to the gym maybe a few times a week, getting my lifts in. And again, at the time, you're thinking, oh, my bench press is improving. And now I think, oh, my bench press was awful. Because you're like benching 35 or something. And you know, but again, you're young and you think you're growing, and again, your structures are growing. But and I'm grateful to have that time because, again, like you said, Rich was brilliant and he did so much for us at our uni rugby team and really allowed us to kind of grow as players and have fun at uni as well, because I think that was the point of uni rugby. Is it's competitive, yes, but it's also fun, and our courses, obviously physiotherapy, is so full on that actually having that time to play rugby was limited, so it was important that you enjoyed it at that point, and it was something you could get involved in with that still allowed you to maintain this enjoyment.
Yeah, no, it was so good. It was so much fun. Honestly, it was like the best fun years of rugby. Just the bit of traveling, going over and back the bridge. It was, if you're going across the bridge, it was a big game.
Yeah.
But definitely in terms of the strength and conditioning side, like you're a professional athlete now. Like that gym is, you know, part and parcel of everything that, you know, a huge part of your week, 3 or 4 sessions a week?
Yeah.
You know, and even I think as a young girl starting and seeing, if you compare maybe even the weights that you maybe were moving or lifting at the beginning of your journey to now, yes, there's obviously a big you know, increase in the weight, but I think we maybe focus on looking at the moving of the weight too much, of how much the weight is going up compared to what actually your training and competence around, you know, exercise and strength training is like. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think, again, it's probably around like the numbers that you're hitting as well. It's very easy to become quite fixated on that. But actually it's okay, I started at this age when I was lifting this much, but actually I've also gained however much lean muscle mass, or actually I'm more explosive, and using like again different things to measure that, and knowing that it's not necessarily about the numbers, but it's about how you're presenting. Again, from a rugby perspective, it's your stats and the collision dominance and how effective you are at set piece and things like that. So it's the numbers can get quite and also sometimes I guess over time, like you're starting so like low, what appears low, and actually you don't seem like you're making much progress, but you are. It's just actually that progress looks differently, and actually your progress might be shown in, for instance, if from a forward perspective, a line out, you might think actually I wasn't able to lift this, like overhead press this like a few years ago, but now I can, and actually that's affected me in this set piece line out, and that's affected me here. So actually that progress as well is important. Again, visually knowing I can do that so much better now, and again that's where the analysis stuff comes in too, right? Is that actually you can see where you were and see where you are now, and actually knowing that you weren't able to do that. And I guess from a personal perspective, it's comparing yourself to who you were yesterday and not getting caught up on the numbers, but actually I wasn't able to do this last year, or I wasn't able to do this 3 months ago, but I can now. And it's that personal progress that you're looking for. But
most definitely. Yeah, no, I think, but then there's the other angle too. And I think with the whole injury prevention thing, we don't know how many injuries we didn't get because of strength training. I think that's a really interesting concept. Is like, everyone talks about the stats of the injury occurrence, but if you weren't doing any of that, if you weren't doing any strength training, probably be riddled and injured all the time. And I think we get so pushed towards, yes, doing what you're doing in the gym is going towards your performance metrics, but then it's also your injury prevention metrics as well. And then also being fit and strong for life. Like we were in the gym the last day, and I asked you, do you like box squat or do you like full depth squat? And you're like, oh gosh, I full depth squat because I want to keep that mobility and strength for in the next like 50 years. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. It was really important.
Yeah, because we, again, on that conversation, we spoke about it, didn't we? And actually, I knew this chair was going to get me at one point.
You're going to be the one who falls off the chair.
Yeah, I'm going to mention about chairs now, so it's going to seem really ironic. But like again, if you're squatting and you squat to a box, if that box is higher than 90 degrees, like that's quite difficult in terms of when you're looking at when you're maybe 70, 80, getting out of a chair and things like that. Actually, that's going to affect how you do that. But having the mobility to do like a back squat is so important for later in life, and just managing that kind of strength and mobility and making sure that you can do these basic things when you get older. And it doesn't need to be 130 like Abbie does, which she probably wouldn't scream about. 130 full range squatting is very, very impressive. Even if it is your like goblet squatting to full range, like I think that all is really important. So after uni, then you did the balancing lifestyle that so many of first generation professional rugby players had to do, in terms of working your 8 to 4 physiotherapy job, then having to get all your gym sessions in, go to your rugby sessions. How was that balancing act that you did? Hard. And I think I probably ended up being on autopilot for a few years. When I first graduated from uni, I lived in Cardiff and I worked as a physiotherapist in Eastbourne Talbot Hospital, which is probably about a 40-50 minute drive west of Cardiff. And then I played with Bristol Bears, which was Bristol Ladies at the time, which we both played for together. And obviously, being a physiotherapist, your shift patterns are looking at probably 8 till 4, 8:30 till 4, and it is a lot. You're getting up again really early to go to the gym. You're in the gym by 5:30, 6. You're leaving to get to work at like 7, and then you get to work at 8, and then you're doing a full day, and then you're driving after work straight to Bristol. to do a training session and get everything else done, and then you're almost doing that 2 or 3, 4 days on repeat. It was a lot, and I think my circumstances changed in terms of shortly after I was doing that kind of balancing act, I did my ACL, so that took me out of the game for a long time. It took me about 15 months to get fully rehabbed and back into the game from then. And
that was on your first. That's whenever you were on the cusp of Wales. Yeah. So that was a really hard and challenging time for you.
Yeah, it was, and I think I was uncapped at the time. Yeah. Well, I was uncapped at the time, and I was in and around the squad. And I remember we had an armed force game where in the autumn internationals used to play against the armed forces, so played in that. And then I remember we went to an away uncapped fixture against Scotland, which was more of a closed game. And then our regional programme used to run in the new year, so from January. And played one game in at Sardis Road in Pontypridd, and I did my ACL, and obviously that it knocks you back quite a lot, and I did my meniscus as well, so the added complication of when that affects you in terms of your return to play, because that change of direction becomes more difficult with the added pressure of the meniscus, so that was more difficult. But I think that journey taught me a lot, and probably where the game was at, that women's game was at, in terms of that probably amateur kind of era.
Yeah.
Where actually maybe the provision that we receive now wasn't necessarily there for players at that point in time. And that was just where the sport was. And that was that. But I know now when I see players in the environment or in the kind of professional game, when they're having big injuries like their ACL, the provision is there for them and the support is there for them, and that's amazing to know how much that game has come on and that provision has grown, and that's excellent. But definitely from a personal perspective, it affected me because obviously it was right before the Six Nations. It was quite disappointing, and I look back and I think I was 21, so my body was just saying no. Yeah. And that's that, and sometimes when your body is overloaded and actually you're probably
mental fatigue too.
Mental fatigue,
traveling,
physical fatigue, and probably not getting all your 1%s right, like your sleep right, your nutrition right, and all these things. It's a massive factor. And then I rehabbed for a long time, and then I came back and I played for a local rugby club, and then I played with them for a few months.
Is it Landa?
Yeah, Landa North, yeah.
Just a quick second to tell you about my online coaching for female athletes of all ages and all stages of their strength and sporting journey. Strength and conditioning is so important for women. Whether you want to get stronger in the gym, faster on the pitch, have some structure and accountability to stay consistent, or want to bridge the gap between early stage rehab and high level performance, I can help you get there. Everything is done through the MTA Performance app. Get your fully personalised programme that fits you, your schedule and your goals. Every exercise has an in-depth video tutorial and voiceover to ensure your technique is perfected. With the MTA Performance app, every workout is logged, and I'll use that data to continue to personalise and progress your plan going forward. And I'll be there to support you with any questions, any queries along the way to ensure your success. So if that's something you're interested in, then click the link below or DM me on Instagram, MaveListon_physio, and book your free call with me to get a plan sorted just for you. Take your sport and career, your gym performance, and your overall health to the next level with the Play Strong Girl system. With me, your coach, Maeve Liston.
Because you did play for... Did you play for...
No, I came to a couple of training sessions. I think it was just before I moved back. I was with Bristol until the kind of last year, and then... no, I remember coming down to a couple of trainings in Landa, I think, but it seemed like a real nice club, and I know a good few of the girls are still there now. But that being on the cusp and seeing what you wanted, and then feeling like you were doing everything right to get it, and then it was taken away. How did you mentally be like, well, I'm gonna come back again? Is that the stubbornness from your dad, or is that something that just you're like, I need to just do this now for me?
Yeah, I think there's probably a bit of both. Like, I've definitely always been very stubborn, And I think I was very much like, I'm gonna do this, even if it kills me. If that's quite extreme, but I was very much like that. And I saw what I wanted. I wanted to play for Wales. I wanted to get my first cap. I knew it was something I could achieve. But it just took a bit more time for me. And actually now I'm a bit older and probably more experienced. I've accepted that, and actually I do hold my head high, knowing that I grafted really hard for those caps and for the jersey, and I still do. And it's brilliant, and that's what elite sport's all about. And it's brilliant to be a part of in that respect, because your journeys are difficult. Like, nothing's ever given to you on a plate. No. And if it's given to you on a plate, then it's not really worth having, which is something I believe in.
What year did you get your first cap?
I got my first cap in 2019. So we had an away fixture in Madrid against Spain. And it's an interesting one because that fixture, obviously it was away. Spain was lovely. Obviously Madrid's lovely. And the stadium was really open. And I remember we had a shirt presentation that was on the pitch, and it was really lovely. Yeah. And my mum and dad were able to come out for it, and obviously I got my first cap, and it was really nice. And we played in a green strip, which again was really lovely to experience, because it's obviously your more traditional red strip is more obviously home games, but the green strip was really special and nice. And actually even now, like, some of the players that I played against in that fixture who I didn't know so well, say some of the Spanish players I then played with at Exeter Chiefs when I joined and signed with them in 2020. And then now I play with obviously Bimba and Claudia, who also played in that fixture as well. So it's nice. It's such a small world, but I wasn't friends with them at the time, and now I am. So it's lovely to know that rugby brings you in like a full circle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, most definitely. And like, then of course we have like COVID and all of that happens as well. But a really lovely moment for myself and Abbie was actually in 2022. I got my first sevens cap for Ireland over in Portugal, and Abbie also got her first sevens cap in Portugal, playing in Rugby Europe. And it honestly was just so nice, and it felt like, I wouldn't go as to say like full circle moment for me, but it was just like a parallel of, even though we actually hadn't seen each other, that was the first time we'd seen each other, I think.
Good few years.
In a good few years. Like, I think after you came over to Belfast, that was in 2019, I think, or 2018 you came over. 2019 you came over to be in Belfast, and then it was like 3 years 2019, 20, 21. 3 years later, then getting capped. And it was just really, really nice to share it with you. And I just was like, oh, Cardiff Uni, 2 players. It was so nice. And you had that kind of summer in the sevens then as well. And then, exciting, after 2022, that is when you got fully contracted.
Yeah, so
how was the transition?
Yeah, it was an interesting transition. So I was part-time. I had a part-time contract in 2022. And then just before we went and played sevens, a few months before that, I had a neck injury. So I was like managing that conservatively and managing those symptoms. And again, I was really lucky to kind of come back with a full recovery and not need surgery. But then again, played sevens and got a bit of game time before the World Cup in 2022 in New Zealand. And then after the World Cup, I went back to play at Exeter Chiefs and club. And then, I had a full-time contract from 2023 onwards. And then I think from that, the 2023 contract, that is probably when my career changed. And I really was able to transfer and kind of transfer all my energy from what was a part-time physio career and a part-time rugby career to a full-time professional rugby career. And it really changed my career, my ability to play at a high level, and just put myself forward from a selection perspective, but also get more out of the sport because I was able to put more in.
Yeah, because you're burning the candle. Realistically, you're burning the candle at both ends, and I think sport, it's great how it is going in the professional direction for every female sport or any sport. But I know for rugby how much goes into keeping your body right for the sport, because there's so many impacts. There's so much physical stress on your body. That when you're burning the candle at both ends of like the mental fatigue and then the physical fatigue as well, you know, unfortunately we do break down, and we need more research into how much our bodies can handle as well. That's a whole other interesting topic. But how much our bodies can handle to be able to withstand certain loads and things. But how was the transition like mentally for you? For, you know, I think we spoke about it a little bit last night of, you know, you're playing the sport as a huge hobby, obviously with aspirations of becoming professional. But whenever we started taking it seriously, it probably wasn't even like a full thought that it would go that way, even though there was an inkling and stuff that it would go that way. But even that change in mentality to go, oh, this is my job now. Like, you're so diligent in everything you do anyway. But how was it to go, oh, this is my job now?
I think it took a bit of time to realise it, because almost what you've been working towards for so long, and actually again, this was the first time that Wales were professional, so actually it was huge. It was, and it was a big realisation of, wow, like this is our jobs now. This is amazing. And I think from having a professional career already in physiotherapy, actually, I try and treated it like everything I would do in that career, I'm now going to do in this one instead. So actually, that professionalism transferred really well. And there was so many like transferable skills. Again, we were incredibly lucky to have worked in a professional career from the age of probably like 20, 21 really. So then to be able to do it in rugby was amazing. And again, it went from that, this is a hobby, but it's international, to I'm being paid, and this is great. And again, it's getting used to that kind of new setup, and actually knowing that I can set time differently and organize my time differently, and I can gym at a normal time and not at 5:30 in the morning, and all of these things. And the impact it's had on sleep and recovery, and being able to look after those 1% is a lot better, is massive.
I know.
But the transition was definitely like, wow. But it was just great to be able to put my time and energy into one thing and into a rugby career, because it takes up more time than we think. And actually sometimes it's saying no to things that, for instance, if you've got a game at the weekend and your friends are going on a big hike, you think, actually, that's probably not going to do my Achilles very good. Or that's probably not going to do my soft tissues any good.
Yeah.
And it's saying no to those things, but it's being able to manage that and be okay with that, because actually the bigger picture is that I'm fit every week to play rugby, which is what we've all worked so hard to do and to achieve.
Yeah. And I think that's whenever you're working full time and trying to manage, as you said, everything else that comes with being a player and being an athlete, then your hobby becomes so much heavier. And it's not that you're going to do like your crocheting or your downtime or going surfing or whatever else people do. Your hobby is what you put your most time into, and then it's like so hard to separate the identity. Like every person, I think, who cares about their sport has such an identity attached to it, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, because it can completely empty you mentally and emotionally if it's not going the way you want it to.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes as well, it's as a player, it's knowing, for instance, that is going to be difficult, like having that identity with playing rugby. And I'm Abbie, I'm a rugby player. It's remembering that that's not all of you, and some days it's easy to do that, and other days it's really difficult. And again, when you're not in form, or you're not playing very well, or there's other stuff going on behind the scenes, and you for some reason it's not working out at this point in time, then that can be quite difficult, because I guess it proposes a question of actually, have I got other things, like other strings to my bow? And that's why, again, I'm so glad that I have a physiotherapy career, because actually that's something else that I'm really interested in. And it's knowing that, okay, this isn't going so well at the moment, but it's okay. And having things to, you know, a good support system and great family and friends to also kind of keep you in that positive mindset, and knowing that actually you're not just a rugby player. And sometimes I think it's an interesting one, because when you see people you haven't seen in a while, or friends or family, sometimes, and I say this to my parents a lot, it's an interesting one of someone will be like, "Hi Abbie, how are you? How's rugby going?" But sometimes the first question isn't necessarily "How are you?" It's "How's rugby going?" So then sometimes actually you'll think to yourself, "Gosh, okay, well, actually this person says hi and asks me how I am, but also is very keen to know how rugby's going." So that attachment straight away is directly to rugby. So it's actually, is it just me? Am I just a rugby player, or is that what people see me as? Think of when they see me? And that's a really interesting perspective as well, because I've kind of learned to kind of answer that question with a little bit more kind of open-mindedness and knowing that actually people are interested, and to other people to the outside world, it is like the pinnacle. And it is the pinnacle. It's brilliant. And you know, obviously we are in a position where we're performing, and we get to perform on television to a large amount of people and inspire young boys and girls, and that's amazing. But obviously it comes with its difficulties too, and the identity piece is very interesting, and obviously when you're talking about selection and things, that can be quite difficult as well. I know we spoke the other evening about whether maybe that identity piece is probably because it used to be considered as a hobby, and now it's approaching into like a professional era. Has that changed how, like, our kind of vision of selection, and is that now why we attach our self-worth to selection more so? Whereas, like, again, like we spoke about the other night, is when we were working as physiotherapist, or when I was working as a physiotherapist, if my boss didn't think I was able to do certain things, or actually we had a very professional conversation in our kind of like our monthly meeting, like I would take that and be like, absolutely, like, how can we help this patient get better, and is there things that I can do in my remit that will work better? But again, that wouldn't affect us on a more personal level, and it's definitely an identity thing, I think, when we're talking about things like that.
I think it'll be really interesting. Like, you're the first set of contracted professional players for Wales. Like, I think there's definitely going to be a lot past your time that's going to come out of how is the best way for us to have maybe not more professional conversations, but be able to look at it without that identity shift. Like, there probably has to be a lot of more kind of work done and research into it, because you know, we feel things a lot. we feel things a lot as women, and I think that's okay, but maybe we need a little bit more support in a different way than maybe how the men's game is set up. I don't know, but that's something that we might find out or learn more about in the next 10 or 15 years. Is there anything, you know, do you feel, I'm sure you feel obvious privilege for being like the first round of professional players, or is there any pressure?
I think a bit of both. I think pressure comes with the sport anyway. I think you're, you know, from how I view it, is you're playing for Wales and there's a lot of eyes on you to perform, and that pressure comes with the job, because, you know, lots of fans and members of the public watch and they love rugby. It's something that they really enjoy, and you obviously have fans who love what the game brings, and obviously what the women's game has created, which is brilliant, is that it's created a real family atmosphere, and it's a really safe environment for children and for families to come and bring themselves and have a day out, which is something that is amazing. And the safety of fans and young children pitch side is something that I'm so glad the women's game can provide. But I think that pressure is something that's expected.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the pressure, it's normal for it to get too much, because most athletes have such high expectations of themselves, and expectations of their team, that they want to win and they want to perform and they want to do the best they can, because that's the mindset that athletes have. But going back to obviously your question, it's an interesting one where I look at my role now probably more of a senior player, is that pressure is still there for me. Obviously, you want to play in the jersey for as long as you can, and I've got aspirations with Wales and aspirations in my rugby career that I still want to achieve. But I definitely look at it more now as a position where I can help others and educate professionalism, educate kind of like a culture and environment and things like that, that's going to help progress our game more. And like in the World Cup, we were lucky enough, and like some of the younger players came into our environment, and they're amazing. And some of them I've got such respect for, because they're going to be brilliant players, excellent leaders, and they've come into the environment on merit, because they deserve to be there, and it's such a great opportunity for us to drive the environment in the right direction, and the game in the right direction, and again with that, drive performance and drive cultures, and it's a good opportunity, and I see that now more so. And I think now I've definitely put myself in a position where I want to push for that and want to make things better, so that younger players will have better experiences. And that's what it's all about, I think, in the end. It's and as cliche as it sounds, it is leaving the jersey in a better place for someone else.
No, that's it. That's amazing. And I think what's really interesting is, the leaving the jersey in the better place. So I think it would be really good, because there's so many young girls now aspiring to become professional athletes in whatever sport that is. Is there any advice, as someone who's kind of gone through both stages, pushing for the balancing act that there is, and then coming into the professional environment, is there anything words of wisdom that you could give them for coming into that professional environment?
I think definitely to have lots of strings to your bow. Like, I think for me personally, having a career outside of rugby really helped, because injuries happen, long-term injuries happen, and during that time it's quite stressful. It can be quite, the toll on your mental health can be massive, because again of the identity piece, and again, if you have surgery, you're immobile for a significant period of time, so that can be quite demoralizing as well. So having something else outside of rugby, I would always recommend, just because I think it gives you another outlet, and it gives you something else that, I'm a rugby player, but I'm actually really good at this, and I'm also able to do that. Or actually, I've been doing a few calls on my day off, and I'm working with this client and this client, and I've been helping them do X, Y, Z. So it's giving you kind of another sense of purpose, which I think helps massively. And I think, another thing is probably liaising with the staff, particularly the support staff. Like, I think there's obviously a lot of emphasis on coaching staff, and probably staff that play a bigger role within working environments and sporting environments, but the support staff are the ones who will kind of build relationships with you on a more personal level, I think. And you're looking at maybe nutritionists, your sports scientists, your medics, doctors, physios, Building relationships with those staff members will allow you to get the most support you need. And just from a personal perspective, my nutritionist at Wales, he's excellent, and he's given me the best advice to support me through my weight gain journey. But he's also been there when I've struggled with my weight gain journey, and actually I'm not as heavy as I'd like to be. And he's been there to support me through that. And I think that is really important, because what that does is it breeds emotional conversations, emotional vulnerability. And actually having that in support is so important, because that allows you to build connections and get the best out of you as an athlete. I think that's really important, and knowing when to ask those questions to those staff members and when to kind of think, actually, like this question is probably more directed at a coach, but it is. I think the relationships with the support staff are really important, and building connections with players as well. And I'd always come back to the enjoyment piece, because that is why you play the game in the first spot, and it's really easy to come away from that when the pressure builds, because obviously you are attached from an identity piece, but that enjoyment piece is why you started. And we talk a lot in our environments in both Wales and Harlequins is around our whys, like why we play the game and why we get involved and why we want to play and we want to reach the highest level we can. And I think that very much tells you and encourages you to keep yourself present and keep yourself where your feet are and ground yourself. And it's so very easy to forget that, when not necessarily forget it, but just kind of put it to one side when things get quite tough and when the pressure builds. And like I said earlier, like when you're not performing so well, or when your body's struggling and you need a bit of a break or things like that. And I've definitely learned to kind of do that a little bit more in myself in my own career.
Yeah, no, I think that those are all really amazing points and plenty for girls there to digest. Coming back to the working with the support staff, like I think that is huge and something that I nearly even see in the way that my online coach and online physio is going. The athletes that give me the most and trust me the most are the ones that get the best results, because they're all in, we're bought in together, we're on this journey together. And I think that's something as well that comes into it with yourself and your team and your background team and everything, is you are all on the journey together. All these little individual pieces, whether it's, I met one of my athletes yesterday and I was able to ask her about her dog and just those little mini conversations and everything that you have build the like best connections to get the best. And it's really big for women, isn't it, that we have to feel comfortable and feel good in order to perform well. And I think especially being surrounded by other women, some people can think that these high performance environments can be a bit bitchy or a bit tetchy and everything, but if every individual person feels safe there, then that's when you're going to get the most out of it, isn't it?
It's the psychological safety as well, and it's knowing that you can be yourself in an environment and a workplace, any workplace, not just sport, any workplace, and that will allow you to be your best because you feel safe enough to do so. And like you said earlier, like the more as an athlete you put in, the more you'll get out. And that's something that I very much believe, because again, like as a rugby player, you're a rugby player, but you're an athlete first. And then what kind of, I like to refer to it as like the umbrella term of having athlete or professional athlete at the top. And then rugby player is a small part of the umbrella. Yeah. And then you'll have, again, your rugby player, your skills, your nutrition, your weights, your fitness levels, your recovery, all these other points that make you a good professional athlete.
Yeah, professional athlete first. That's really really a good way to think
and that's something that I try and live by, because I think it probably aligns with myself more so.
Yeah, and your values. Because you've always been so diligent in like everything that you do. And like, I think it's so good to chat to you because you are someone who has gone through being on the cusp of a team and then making it in, being traveling reserve, and then getting yourself on the squad, and then, you know, impact player and starter player, and all of those different, like that whole journey. Is there any advice that you could give for, I guess, all those different aspects of that journey? You know, you've so much wealth and experience, knowledge through that. And, you know, I know myself, if I'm not selected, I, you know, have a bit of down feeling on myself for a while. Don't get me wrong, I've got a lot better over the years, being okay and adapting to that and making sure I put my best foot forward for the team and what they need at the time. Is there, you know, anything that comes to mind with that?
I think that's it. I think the more experience you have, the more equipped you are to manage
every situations.
Yeah. And again, I've experienced a lot of situations. Again, I've been on the fringe. I've come off, I prefer the term impact player.
Yeah.
Just basic, because I think it adds more value to the team. But again, I've started games, I've not played games, and there's a role for everyone in the team. And again, that I think is that experience allows you to manage those kind of feelings that come up again when you're not selected, or when you are selected, or maybe you think actually you've got subjective feelings and you've got subjective opinions, which is absolutely fine. But if that doesn't align with what your coach thinks, then you can't control that. And it's just accepting that. And again, as you get older, you get more experience in dealing with those conversations and those situations. And I think having experienced lots of different kind of situations, having come off the bench or having not played, I can empathize so much more with those players. And I do try and kind of like support those players more based on knowing what they've gone through and being able to empathize with that, and actually more so support them through that. And for some players, they might establish themselves in environments so quickly, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But for other players, it might just take a bit longer, and that's absolutely fine too. And it's just everyone's journey is different, and it's managing that as best as you can. But don't get me wrong, you've got days where that's difficult, and sometimes when you're not feeling in the best spot yourself, your ability to manage those kind of, we'll say, intrusive thoughts around selection is quite difficult. But also on days where you're feeling better in yourself, actually, I'm coming off the bench, I'm coming on as an impact player, I'm going to do a great job and I'm going to make a massive difference for the team, and that's brilliant. So it's just managing that. I think talking to people about it and having people that you can talk about it is really helpful. And I think knowing where to talk about it as well is important, because I know we spoke the other night about kind of performance and around kind of, I guess, the team first element, which I think the element of team first is kind of words that are thrown around quite a lot. But I think actually it's something that is so important to building the culture and environment of a team, that it isn't just around the match day 23, and it's knowing when the priorities kind of like sit. For instance, if you're on a match day week and you've got a test week and you're playing on a Saturday, okay, so the performance of the match day team is paramount this week. But actually, adjacent to that, are we giving the non-paying players opportunity to fight for selection? Are we giving them opportunity to build their fitness, to get those extra gains in, to make sure that they're
ready to go?
Ready to go for the next week, or they're working on their long-term, short-term goals of their strength training, or they're hitting weights that they're aspiring to, and making sure that everyone is getting the best out of it, because it's a performance sport, and winning is paramount, of course. That's why we all play. It's because we want to win. But it's also knowing that you're creating an environment, which allows performance, which allows winning.
I think that's huge. Even the communication to every single player on the squad, of not that everybody needs to be told what their role is, not exactly like that, but if you are not in a match day 23, you know, being told that, oh, we'll get you these top-up runs in, we'll get your speed, we'll hit those speed markers so that, you know, if you need to get called in for anything, then, you know, you're ready. Because I think, you know, I even know after watching some games and hearing people behind me going, oh, they're making all the people who weren't playing run. And you're just like, it's such a negative way to like look at it. It's like, oh, they're being made run because they didn't even play. And you're just like, it's not. You don't know. You don't know what it is. It's actually just making sure that they are going to be fit. So if they do have to come on next week, that they're not going to like pull a hamstring because they haven't done any high speed running. Yeah. But I think that's a whole piece of like education as well for everyone involved, isn't it? But yeah, being the team first, I think it's something that is definitely needed to be looked at by the whole team and your culture and building that, and that's, you know, paramount. What's been, you know, amazing for women's rugby in the past even like 2 years has been the absolute, I think, growth of, you know, female professional athletes online, not just in rugby but in many sports, and you know, seeing more content about it and seeing, you know, athletes' personality and everything. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Coming from the other angle of that, do you think that there might be a pressure on young and upcoming players to have to build their social media following or their, you know, I guess off-field persona?
I think there's probably a perceived pressure. I think obviously we're in a very different kind of society now to when I first received my first contract. So actually the sport is growing, and I do think there's a really important part of social media that allows the game to grow, because what it does is it exposes people and individuals who've never played rugby before to the sport, and that's brilliant. It's amazing. I think it's so powerful, but I guess the flip of the coin is that actually I don't think it's necessarily paramount for athletes or aspiring athletes to feel that they need to create a social media profile for themselves in order to become successful. So I don't think necessarily, I think it would be, I don't think personally necessary that it's that your success as an athlete or your success as a rugby player should be tied to whether you're present online or not. I think you can be a successful athlete in your own right. And if you choose to live a private lifestyle, that's absolutely fine. And I think that's how you choose to live your life, and that shouldn't necessarily be a factor in success, especially in sport, because it's a personal preference. But I know personally I don't have a large social media following. I don't tend to post a lot online or anything like that, and that's what I choose to do. And I guess for young women, men coming into the sport or a different sport now is knowing that, or trying to encourage them and empower them to feel that they can still be a successful athlete and not have that profile. That's okay. And it's knowing that it's okay, because again, the society is changing. Society is changing into a more online base, and that's brilliant, and it's doing wonders for the game. There are some negative sides of social media as well, and obviously we see plenty of examples of that, but I do think that a lot of it is positive, and it exposes characters and exposes individuals in the right way to allow the sport to grow. But I think it's also important that young people know that it's okay. It's okay to have that.
Yeah, no, I think social media definitely has its positives and its benefits. I think in all aspects, not just sport, just in general life. Sure, we're all spending too much time on it and needing to get outside. So that's all, you know, has its positive and negative too. So you've been here for the past 4 days with me. She's probably sick of me now. She can't wait to jump on the plane. But we've had a great time so far. We did, I think, had a wholesome few days. What was your favourite part?
So many. Yesterday was probably the most wholesome day, wasn't it?
It was a full day of wholesome.
What did we? We experienced a Butler's hot chocolate. That was
just
exceptional.
Take them all off. It was great.
Yeah, I'm going to get one at the airport.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. And then we experienced the Gingerman.
Yeah. So I hope this episode is out around Christmas. I'm telling everyone to go to the Gingerman. It was just completely covered in Christmas lights. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was lovely. And then a good trip to Brian Thomas. Just have a look around. Didn't buy anything, but had a great look around.
Yeah. Smelled all the perfumes.
Smelled all the
Lovely.
perfumes. It was great. And then Mark cooked us a lovely steak. It was great. It was a great 4 days. And thank you so much for coming. So before we wrap up, I love a good quick fire round. Loads of the people haven't been very quick in their answers, but you know, that's okay too.
Yeah.
So this is just things that Abbie hasn't heard just yet. So, favorite stadium that you've played in? Quick fire.
Gosh, yeah. No, it's not quick fire.
No, don't worry.
I do like playing in the Principality Stadium.
We got our first experience playing in the Principality Stadium together.
Yes, we did.
So I'm going to shove myself in there too. Yeah, for varsity.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, that's cool.
Getting important jackal turnover or score try?
Important jackal turnover.
I know, this is typical. If you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
I would really like to have dinner with Brené Brown.
She's really bad. Who's that?
She is a motivational speaker. She writes a lot of books around like vulnerability, and has basically is a motivational speaker and speaks about how
where's she
you can
based?
overcome America.
Oh, amazing!
America?
I need
Maybe
to look
I've
her up.
lied.
We'll look it up after.
Please cut that bit out.
What trait are you most proud of in yourself?
I think I'd say resilience. I think I'm quite a resilient person. I think it's knowing that I know that I'm not perfect all the time, or I've got high expectations for myself, and that's okay. But actually being able to overcome that is massive, and overcome the things that set you back is even more important. And I think that's a quality that I like about myself. Yeah,
you're great. You're fab. What is your spirit animal?
Oh, I'd say something like a lion, just because they're
scary.
They're quite aggressive, but they're like cute and cuddly. And
what, really? You're gonna cuddle a lion?
Soft inside. So I've just got a lot of layers.
Like an onion, you got layers.
Yeah. But an onion's not an animal, so I can't say that.
Who'd play you in a film about your life?
Oh, a film about my life. Oh my gosh. Like a professional actor.
Yeah.
Or an actress even. It's not gonna be an actor. I don't know.
Any lovely red-haired actresses?
Maybe Emma Stone. Is Emma Stone?
Oh, she'd be great.
She's the only redhead actress I know. Oh no, sorry. Kate Winslet in Titanic.
I was going to say
iconic.
That. Iconic. Your favourite pub in Dublin?
I still think it's the Oliver St. John.
Yeah.
I know we didn't go in, but
I know.
I went there a few years ago, and from what I remember, it was really good.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
All your nights out. Abbie's come to Dublin twice for a rugby tour and has never been outside the city, and saw lots of different bits then on this tour, which is much better.
It's great.
This trip. What is one thing you want people to remember about our talk today?
I think just that hopefully being who you are is okay, and knowing that who you are is exactly what the world wants you to be. And it's if we were all the same, it would be a pretty boring world.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that you can be yourself and be exceptional, and that's exactly who everyone wants you to be, is enough, which I'd like.
That is lovely.
Yeah.
So lovely. Oh, we'd have a moment before I ask the next one. This is obviously called the Play Strong Girl podcast. So what does being a strong girl mean to you?
Lots of things. I think coming from an athlete perspective, I think I would automatically assume a strong girl is, again, physically strong, mentally strong, But I think that can look differently for different walks of life. So I would probably perceive a strong girl to be overcoming adversity and overcoming kind of like holes in the road, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who works in a different walk of life might think that looks completely different. So I definitely think overcoming adversity is something that a strong girl would definitely be like. I think a strong girl is someone who can be unapologetically themselves and not worry about what other people think, even though there's probably a secret part of everyone that does worry.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay as well. But it's, probably overcoming adversity and being unapologetically yourself.
Amazing. That's brilliant. Thank you so
welcome.
much, Abbie.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in the next episode of the Play Strong Girl podcast.